all that kind of romance coming into it. I think it's pretty good. I think it will be a good couple of ties, and I'm excited by it. It kind of goes back to, I suppose, talking about attendances and whether there's going to be a big clamour for tickets. I think it will be pretty much close to sold out at Parkhead. I don't see why it shouldn't be.
I agree to an extent. I also think there is a certain a lot of people don't watch Italian football. Chris?
Boud,
whatever one wants to speak.
I agree with Lou. I think it will sell out. I think, as much as you say, Italian football maybe isn't as big now as it was back when we were boys. Inter Milan's still a huge name. It's got the romance of '67, and I'm really excited that Inter Milan are doing really poorly this season, but they're still they're still Inter Milan. They've still got a lot of players that could walk into really big teams, including ours. And I'm also excited because I was going to start making comments, and I thought, no, they don't actually. They're not going to get.
Sticking with that, geez.
Yes.
Take that back.
No, I stick with that.
If you like.
But see, after our 7th successive season in the Champions League, where we were paired with Barcelona, Benfica, Ajax, and Man U, it was a 5-team group, 7 years in a row. I don't know what was happening there, but Inter Milan was one of the teams I always wanted to get, because it's a big team that we just always kind of missed. So I think it's great that we've got them, and as far as having a chance of beating them, now's probably a good time.
We'll get to I just want to say, what Inter player would not get into the Celtic team?
Moving on, Louis, what was your point?
I just going back to what you said about a lot of people maybe not watching Italian football. I think that works in the ties' favour. Inter Milan, if anybody knows about football and European football, they'll know the name Inter Milan and they'll regard that as a huge team. People maybe haven't been keeping up to it with Italian football in recent years and know exactly where they sit in the league. But the fact you're saying Inter Milan, immediately people are going to think, oh, they're one of the best teams in the world.
Chris, thoughts on the draw?
It's a nice draw. It's a winnable tie, but absolutely 100% not winnable if we defended like we did in the group stages. I don't even mean just in the Zagreb game. I think
even the games we won.
Even the game. Well, put it this way. Do you know how? Apart from Craig Gordon, how badly did we defend in Austria for a start? We got let off the hook, and I think the fact that we scored 3 goals kind of masked how bad our defence. Well, it didn't really mask it, but I think a team could give us a doing. We've been that defensively bad in Europe. We're going to have to tighten up a lot against Inter. Against
Inter, we can't solely rely on Craig Gordon, as you're saying. He can't do it all against him.
Myself personally, I'm very excited. I think Inter are one of the biggest clubs in terms of history, in terms of prestige, European football. They've got really good players. They've got a lot of good players, as myself, Ciaran and Chris were talking about earlier, who don't actually get in the squad, let alone and actually playing every week. Chris, you watch Italian football probably more than, or as much, if more than any of us. Who are the standout players?
I think their goalkeeper Handanovic is one of the best in the world. I think Handanovic is fantastic. I think we've actually got the Inter game on in the background. He just made a fantastic save.
A terrific save, yeah.
I think Handanovic, he was linked with Barcelona a couple of seasons ago. I think his form dipped slightly last season, or it was perceived to be. But Inter are in 12th position just now. I think they could be further down the league if it wasn't for Handanovic. They've got some terrific midfielders. Gary Medel, who was named after...
Gary Lineker. 100% true.
100% not made up.
Do not Google that.
Because it's that much of an interesting fact, you can't find it in Google, only on this podcast.
It's 100% true, yep.
I like Medel. He's a bit of a lunatic, bit of a hard nut, but he's a fantastic player.
He had a terrific World Cup.
Yep, he's one of the mainstays they've got in the middle. They've got who else is the Nagatomo.
Yeah,
he's another fantastic player, and I'm a massive fan of Freddie Guarin as well. Although he's not been featuring as much as he had in the last few seasons.
Nagatomo, not a fan of him myself. I think he's rubbish. Icardi.
There we go. Icardi is a bit hot and cold. Yes, I do rate him, but he's a bit like Osvaldo. you know, when he's on form, he's a terrific player, but for a lot of the time, he's not on form.
Yeah, Ciaran,
What
you're a
about
fan.
Hernandez?
As I was going to say, you're a fan of Hernandez.
Yeah, Harran's a big fan, but he doesn't get a lot of game time, does he?
No, spends a lot of time on the bench. I mean, that's a lot of people maybe not. If you're not a fan of Italian football, you're not really going to know these names because, let's be honest, a lot of them aren't household names. But that's because a lot of it is based on English Premiership stuff, and
I think what springs out in mind. I mean, there's a lot of players that, as you say, that aren't Kosmanovic. Yep. That's what I was just going to say. There's a lot of players that they've got that are technically very good, but it's that consistency.
Yeah.
Kovacic is another one.
Yeah.
A guy who on form is fantastic. And we've always got the insurance policy of Ranocchia at the back,
Yeah.
who's prone to doing an F.A. Ambrose impersonation from time to time.
I'm a huge fan of him. I loved him when he was at Boca, Palacio, who maybe isn't the greatest goal scorer, but you know what he'll do. He's their Anthony Stokes, so a danger man, if ever there was one, with a really hip rat's tail. And Villa, he's shit.
Well,
I've never rated him. I don't know why Inter Milan signed him.
I've never rated him either. I mean, obviously we've seen him. Well, he didn't play against us, did he? When we drew.
He did play, get sent off.
Yeah, that was in the leg in
Glasgow.
No, he didn't.
He did.
Did
Yeah.
he? I thought he
For
got sent
Rennes.
off in France. Aye, I thought he got sent off in
No, he
France.
got sent off in Glasgow. I'll check that. Right, on you go. I'll check that.
Right. Well, anyway, I mean, he was highly rated before that, and I've never really seen him. But as a wee, I don't know.
He went to Russia.
It was a kind of a feeling that he might blossom, but he certainly hasn't. And I think you're right. I think he's just pish.
Yeah, he's...
But they've got a lot of guys that are on form. If they're performing well, they can be fantastic players. But see, as a group and as a unit, they aren't performing. They didn't do it under Mazzarri, and since Mancini's come in, and I know he's not been in for long, he hasn't made too much of a difference. They look, sluggish. They look stop-start. They don't look confident at the back. I think if we can tighten up, especially at the back, then they're a team that we can get at. It's the UEFA Cup as well, the Europa League, sorry. Italian teams take their eye off the ball a lot of the time for that, and I don't think they'll have their eyes on the prize as much as we will, for instance.
From what I've seen, they can literally have a period of about 30 to 40 minutes, even a half, where they play some terrific stuff, and in the second half, they will capitulate to the point of embarrassingly bad displays.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think during the group stage, I think they only lost one, or they might not even have lost.
3 wins and 3 draws.
3 wins and 3 draws. I mean, that basically says to me that they were... I mean, and I did watch them. A lot of the time they weren't interested. They'd done enough to get the win, but essentially it was going through the motions. And I think that we can benefit from that. I think we could want it more than them in terms of the domestic games. The ultimate for the Italian clubs. I think we can benefit from that, but ultimately I think we're going to need to defend at a much higher level if we're going to have a chance.
They scored 6 goals. I mean, it's 6 goals in 6 games.
Yeah, and they finished top undefeated. I just think that if you're looking at their group, it was pretty poor, wasn't it?
That means if they've won 3 and drew 3, they haven't conceded very many. How many?
They've conceded 2. Well, a third of the. It's only a third of their overall tally. What your thoughts on Chris? What your thoughts on where you think Inter could be? Can you see big changes happening? Mancini's not long in the door, but it's hard to predict. It's hard to call at this point.
But Inter, the fans obviously won't be happy with where they are. The problem is they need to freshen that squad up with money, and it isn't something they necessarily have. But Inter Milan on the same boat. They should both be up there challenging for the title, and they're not. So I think both teams are going to see changes over the coming years that are going to be pretty big.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a question, Louis, for you. This is for Daniel McGowan, who got a kick last week out of the fact that we mentioned Paul Medi dump.
Probably the finest of all dumps.
When buzzing at the mention of the Paul Medi dump in the 90MinuteCynic podcast.
I'm going to mention the roll shop, Daniel. Have you been down? You had a roll out there? Terrific rolls. Next time you're down the dump, treat yourself.
I shall just say you're a friend of Chris Sermanni, and the guy will look at you confused, but it would be kind of hilarious.
Palmedy dump CSC. Let's get it started.
Let's not. Will Mancini still be manager of Inter come February? You know what them handsome Italians are like with their gaffers.
Whoa. There seemed to be an undertone to that question.
Really?
No. I was just thought I'd throw that out there.
Louis, if we are to beat Inter Milan, Chris says we need to, defend better, obviously. Where have you been impressed with Celtic in terms of Europe? We've had our 6 games. What part of our play or our position has impressed you most in our time?
I think it's a difficult one. I don't think we've been great, but we seem to have gotten the results one way or another. I mean, was it going into what game was it going into where we were still unbeaten? The game that
the game we lost to Salzburg.
I mean, we're still unbeaten. That's pretty good, considering all the stuff that we've went through so far this season in such a short space of time. In terms of Tyler just coming in, and it looked as if it was all going to go horribly wrong for him, and he's turning it around. And at the same time, although the league form was kind of stuttering, the European ties, once we were out of the Champions League, albeit, they started to kind of pick up, and it looked as if it was almost a sort of kind of release. It was like, well, the expectations lower, we've already been put out of the Champions League, let's just go and have a go at it. And I think that those ties provided the kind of foundation for what we're seeing now, because Ronnie Deila went into the European games as we wanted him to, with a more of an approach of, right, listen, in these games you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about, where I want to go for the next so many years. He started sticking with the formation that we're seeing now, and trying to play the attractive football that he was talking up so much at the start. So I think it's served him well so far. In saying that, it's only really in the last 2-3 weeks where we've really started to kick on, and we're starting to play really well. The passing's better, the movement's better, Johansson being in a better position, Beaton kind of coming in and doing a good job. So we're getting there. I would just love to see that form carry over into the Inter Milan ties, and just go in with, don't fear anyone. That game against Salzburg, we shot ourselves. We gave them too much credit. Went into the game, started playing as if this is the greatest team we're ever going to face. It was like, well, no, they're not Barcelona. Don't give them too much credit. When they come to, I mean, it's going to be a different story away from home, of course, but when they come to Parkhead, I would like to see more of an attitude of, you're coming here, this is our stadium, this is our pitch, we're going to take the game to you and play you off it. You want to beat us at home, you're going to have to do your absolute damnedest.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of aggressive side to things I don't think we've quite seen yet. So I think it'd be a good opportunity if we could get that across to them. And the types of players like Scott Brown and stuff are the perfect people for that. And just grab the game by the scruff of the neck and say, no, you're no beating us.
Yeah.
You want to beat Celtic at home, you're going to have to do a lot better than that. But I think that's something that will come. We said last week and the week before how we seem to play better away from home in the league. We seem to have a better freedom away from home, and at Celtic Park it was kind of starry. Well, Europe should be the place where we absolutely perform at home. It has to be if we've got any aspirations to move on.
Ciaran, so on that point, how do you think the fact that we're at home first in a way, obviously because we're not the seeded team, what sort of impact do you think that'll have? Would you prefer it the other way around?
Oh, definitely. I think you can have yourself, you go away from home, you can just, it can be probably one shittest performance ever. If you just keep it tight and you just try and keep the score level down as low as you can so that you can take it back home, and then you can play and you can get the goals, because it's going to be a lot easier at home when you've got the crowd behind you, where, like we're saying, we're kind of hoping close to a full house. So, I mean, Parkhead and a European night, full house is